Hello everyone, Pineapple Apple here with the latest Batman film, The Batman. Wow, I was really excited for this. When I think about Batman, there are two character traits I like to see from any interpretation. The world's greatest detective being one, and the man who built his own devices and has brains that can overcome any hardship. So when I saw the trailer for this film and saw how it was far more of a mystery than George Clooney's nipples, I was ecstatic. Even though we've had a bunch of Batman films recently, TV and movie, I found myself interested in what a Robert Pattinson Batman could look like. I love Keaton, I liked Affleck enough, and Bruce from Gotham worked well enough. And I feel that this film did both Bruce Wayne and Batman pretty well, including many themes of the character I love to see, and a lot of the plot points directly from a lovely book, The Long Halloween. Now, before we get into the meat of the story, let's get into the characters. Batman in this, or Bruce Wayne for those who don't know what I'm talking about, so I don't know why you would be here, is played by Robert Pattinson, or the Twilight Guy. In this film as Batman, he's pretty great. A decent performance, even though most of the action probably wasn't him. As Bruce Wayne, well, he wasn't bad, but I felt that he was a little too closed off in this film. Now, don't get me wrong, that is a part of his character. But there were a few times I sat there internally screaming, show some goddamn emotion other than being emo. But there were a lot of times when his closed-off nature added to the scene, or felt as if it was in character for him. On a scale of the other Batmen, he's certainly higher up on the list than others, George Clooney being at the bottom. The villain of the piece is the Riddler, played by Paul Dano, the first live movie Riddler performance to actually be intimidating. As Edward Nashton, the unhinged energy he gives is unsettling and honestly a little goofy at times. But as the Riddler, whether from afar or over social media, he is pretty intimidating. The design of his Riddler outfit was great as well. No toxic green and black question marks, but still pretty unique. His character being an orphan and how he talks about the people in Gotham City make a great dynamic between both him and Bruce, and him and Batman. The interrogation scene being one of my favourites, keeping you guessing and being pretty tense at the same time. I also enjoyed the riddles as a part of the movie's mystery, very gratifying to figure out along with Batman and Gordon. Speaking of, Jeffrey Wright played Lieutenant James Gordon. Now, to quell Twitter, oh no, how dare he be black? Yeah, whatever, doesn't matter. I liked this version of Gordon. His dedication to the job and to Batman create great drama and a fun relationship between the two, especially watching him get punched. Although I do wish we were given some more insight as to why Gordon is so ready to trust Batman this early in his vigilante career, only seemingly being on the job for around 2 years. It was enjoyable to see, and interesting as he balances his morals, trying to do what's right, even if it's not what he was instructed to do. He also added a nice element of mystery portions to the plot, although it felt like he repeated several obvious points, just to remind or make it clear to the audience that what was happening. Those moments felt a little too forced, but everything else was good. Zoe Kravitz, daughter of Lenny Kravitz, if you don't know who that is, then I don't recognise your existence, plays Catwoman, or Selina Kyle. She seems to fit a similar role as she did in The Long Halloween, being the illegitimate daughter of Falcone, and fits in the film pretty well. Zoe Kravitz gives a good performance, and the character is fairly entertaining and emotionally engaging. Considering how this movie has so many characters, it is a little jarring when she disappears from the story and suddenly reappears a large amount of time later, but is understandable when it comes to the type of story this film's trying to tell. Not too much time being taken between appearances considering how many other places that we have to cover. Colin Farrell played the Penguin, in a real glow-up from the Danny DeVito version if I'm being honest. Not to say that it's bad, but these are two very different interpretations of the character. While that version wasn't necessarily bad, this one feels like an evolution of the Gotham interpretation, and feels like a character straight out of a Mafia film. The performance was pretty good, and the makeup was fantastic. A great look for the Penguin with more natural proportions than usual. Honestly, I wasn't even sure if it really was Colin Farrell under there. But to be fair, the role of his that did leave the biggest impact on me was Bullseye from Daredevil. Gollum himself, also known as Andy Serkis, plays our new version of Alfred, and being honest, he has a lot to live up to. Michael, however you pronounce his last name, or the Celestial Toymaker, as he was in Doctor Who, is not only one of my favourite early villains from that show, but the main version of Alfred I always think of when the character comes up.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
Even if I remember Mr. Blow the Bloody Doors Off as being pretty good. Andy Serkis, while I don't think he was as good or better than Gao, he was still pretty good. He had the attitude of the character down well, and great moments with Batman, even if one or two of the interactions were painfully formulaic. A welcome surprise to me was that a main player in this film was John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. Or Falcone, if you're going to say it like that for some reason. I usually like when Batman stories foray into the organised criminal underbelly of Gotham, such as in, well, Gotham, and the two big crime families, being the Falcones and the Maronis. So I liked Carmine's inclusion here, and the performance from John Turturro. To me, it seemed like a lot of his inclusion was based on The Long Halloween, including his relationship with both Bruce and Selina. I don't have much else to say, but he was entertaining for the most part. Even though he is just some skinny bloke, he was intimidating for most of his screen time. Now that we're done with the main players, let's get into a simplified version of the story at large. Obviously, bigger spoilers here. This film takes place after Batman has already been active for a while, and he seems to have gotten the attention of some unsavoury people. The Riddler takes it upon himself to try and revitalise the city of Gotham by exposing the corruption, murdering evil individuals, running a TikTok account, and blowing the city's seawall by the end of the film. This obviously makes Batman not as happy as he would like to be. As the Riddler starts placing his hints around the place, Batman picks up on the trail and starts to piece the Riddler's motivation together as he jumps from location to location. This part of the film was pretty intriguing. For the film to actually be a mystery, like many of the best Batman stories, kept the story engaging on a higher level than I wonder who the villain is and how they will kill next. After jumping from the cops to criminal and getting one killed, the Riddler is found and detained as his plan unknowingly to Batman comes to fruition. After a tense and engaging interrogation scene, it is revealed that the Riddler is not only following through with blowing the seawalls and flooding the city, but his followers have started to cosplay as him and attack one of the city's shelters, leading to Batman getting a reality check and saving the people of Gotham like a real hero, not a symbol of vengeance. Oddly, removed from the film only to be released online was a deleted scene taking place before the Riddler's interrogation, where Batman has a conversation with a Joker-like inmate that he seems to have a past with, played by Barry, another goddamn name I don't know how to pronounce. I'll say Keegan. Since his character appears at the end of the film, I'm not sure why this was cut only to be deemed good enough for a quick release online. But I am happy it ended up being released. I enjoy the scene very much, and even if the different shots of a blurred Joker can get stale, the scene is tense and the dialogue is engaging. Let's have a quick talk on cinematography. I'm not the most avid cinematography buff, but first off I have to say I would have liked some scenes that weren't so depressingly dark. At this point it seems almost like an anti-piracy tactic, but even if some shots look good, or are clever and creative, the constant darkness in most of the movie can get a little frustrating or annoying. I mean, I'm writing this script outside on a nice sunny day using a laptop, and my god is it difficult to use reference images from the film, since I can barely see them. Many of the shots in the film also seem more creative than the previous ones. A lot of close-ups, far shots of locations, but not as many as the actual city or surroundings as I would have liked. Also, whereas I liked the design of Gotham in the Burton films, this does something more realistic, but something that feels less creative to me, just like what was done in the Nolan trilogy in the DCEU. Now, something else I noticed while watching this film was the soundtrack, so let's talk about a few of the songs here. First off, I like the inclusion of Something in the Way by Nirvana. I never thought Nirvana would be associated with Batman. Well, to be honest, I didn't think of Seal, Prince or 21 Pilots, but here we are. It fit the mood well and didn't feel out of place, like songs like this put in films can be. Now, I love character themes, so let's talk about The Batman. Michael Giacchino's theme, which seems to serve as the character's theme. Obviously, it can't beat out the '89 one by Danny Elfman. Unlike previous themes I remember, this one seems a little more whimsical and uplifting than the sheer intensity of others, but does have a nice recurring motif that I feel gives the right vibe to this version of the character. Catwoman's theme feels very The Godfather Black Hand Edition for Wii, if you ask me. I honestly can't figure out whether it fits the character well or not, but the smooth and jazzy feeling of it certainly makes the song palatable, something that I would certainly dramatically drink scotch to. The Riddler's theme, while taking obvious inspiration from Ave Maria, does fit the tone of the character well, with an eerie drone to the light and instrumental, ghostly vocals. This is only a part of the theme, as after the 2-minute mark the sound crescendos into following the same motif, but with a full backing and very haunting orchestra. It tapers off again for a minute or two, but honestly, to me, this not only feels like Batman music, but also a great villain-themed piece. And the Riddler's own rendition of Ave Maria was a clear 10 out of 10. No competition on the soundtrack there. So, in conclusion, this was a decent Batman film that focused on the parts of the character I feel aren't explored enough in his movies, and the ones that I like. It had a great cast that mostly did well in their roles, a pretty good soundtrack, and cinematography that did not hinder the film, even if I think some scenes could have been done better. This is definitely a film I would return to, but is certainly not flawless. The film is pretty long, and by the end it did start to feel a little as if it were dragging you along like a hostage, as did the people who sat around for an after-credits scene and were greeted with a short clip about an ARG. Anyway, I give The Batman 2022, directed and written by Matt Reeves and Peter Craig, an unsure score. Seriously, I'm having trouble here. Somewhere between a 6.5 and a 7 out of 10. Let's just say 6.5 to be sure. Thank you everybody for watching my review of The Batman. Like the video if you liked it, comment down below if you wish, consider subscribing to the channel if you do, ring the notification bell so you're told every single time I make an upload. Once again, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next video. Bye!
Toast. A little piece of toast. Because there's so much to choose from. There's brown bread, white bread, all sorts of wholemeal bread. It comes in funny packages with writing on the side.